Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the teleconference for June 3rd, 2021. The Library's Facilities Financing Authority Board meeting will run back-to-back with the Library Joint Powers Authority Board meeting. These meetings are being recorded and streamed live to YouTube. To join this webinar using a telephone only, dial any of the following numbers and I'll read two of them aloud. 1-888-788-0099 or 1-833-548-0282, and then slowly enter the webinar ID of 981-2636-3151. As an attendee, your microphone is muted for the entire presentation unless you follow the process for public comments. You do not need a microphone, camera, or a screen if you only want to listen to the meeting, as this meeting is accessible by landline or mobile phone. The board will take public comments as outlined in the posted agenda and in the next slides. All written comments must include the agenda item number and be received prior to the close of public comment on that agenda item. If you're joining by computer, you may use the Q&A feature to type your comments. On the attendee control bar near the bottom of the screen, you'll see the Q&A icon. You may also use the raise hand icon to raise your hand. The moderator will either call your name or announce the last 3 digits of your phone number when it is your turn. State your name, and then you will have 3 minutes of speaking time. In the lower left corner, you might see audio settings, and then you'll see raise hand and the Q&A icon in the middle, and then you'll see leave in white letters in a red rectangle. If you're joining using a mobile device, the Q&A icon and the raise hand icons likely appear near the top right corner of your screen. So everything's in reverse. You'll see leave meeting in red letters in the upper left corner. Then you'll see the raise hand and Q&A icons in the upper right. If you've called into this meeting using a telephone only, you may raise your hand by pressing *9 on your keypad. The moderator will announce the last 3 digits of your phone number when it is your turn to comment. Press *6 to unmute yourself. You will have 3 minutes of speaking time. Automatic captions are available by clicking the live transcript icon on the Zoom control bar. This feature does have limitations. It currently only supports English, and the accuracy of the feature depends on many variables, including the background noise, volume, and clarity of each speaker's voice. There is no guarantee of accuracy. So down on the bottom of your Zoom control bar, to the right of raise hand, you'll see live transcript, and then you'll have 3 options. Once the board meeting begins, if you're joining by computer, to see all panelists, you may need to use the Zoom control bar and select gallery view. Depending on the size of your mobile device screen, you may need to scroll over to view whoever is speaking. If you're accessing this meeting via a Chromebook or the web browser only, you may not see all panelists at one time, only the panelists speaking. The chair of the board, Martine Bernal, will now call the meeting to order. We're transitioning to gallery view. Please stand by.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Yes, I'd like to call to order the Santa Cruz Library's Facilities Financing Authority regular board meeting of Thursday, June 3rd, 2021. We have a roll call, please.
Director Palacios.
Here.
Director Goldstein.
Here.
Vice Chair Friend.
Here.
Chair Bernal.
Here. Thank you. Next, we have on the agenda additional materials. Are there any additional materials?
There are none.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is additions and deletions to the agenda. I don't believe there are any, but check with you, Susan.
There are none.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is oral communications. This is a time on the agenda for any members of the public to speak to the board regarding any items that are the subject matter of the authority, but not on today's agenda. Is there anyone in the public that'd like to speak during oral communications?
Chair Bernal, there are no public comments.
Okay, thank you. Next is the item 5, which is Executive Director Report. It starts on page 5 and 6 of the agenda packet.
It's been another busy month on our building projects. The good news is things continue to move forward. Most excitingly, we're looking forward to the opening of the Capitola Branch Library on June 12th. Yay! I do really have to thank Jamie and the City of Capitola for all the enormous amount of work and effort they put into building this project. The city put in a large chunk of money. We had a community group who raised a great deal to make enhancements to the building. It really was a village that worked together to create this magnificent branch. Unfortunately, because of health restrictions, even though it's the 12th of June, there are going to be restrictions on the opening, both in terms of mask wearing and the size of the gathering. We're doing a virtual opening at 10 o'clock, and I encourage you all to join us. At 1, we're going to start tours. Folks who are interested in seeing the building need to sign up for the tours in advance. And I have to say, as of today, all of the tours were filled. So we are beginning to add tours on Tuesday, the 15th, as we open up. There'll be one tour offered every day at 2 o'clock for the following 2 weeks. If interest continues in having the official tour, we'll continually offer it. On the 12th, we aren't going to be open as a library. It really is just going to be showing off this wonderful facility to the community. Actual services will begin on Tuesday, and we welcome you all to come and join us in the lovely use of this library. I have to say that Friday, the 11th, is the last day of services at the Aptos branch. This is a branch that is our second most used library in the system. It will be greatly missed, but I want to remind everybody that in 18 to 20 months, we will have a brand new, much larger facility on that site as well. The downtown library keeps moving forward. We're in the process of selecting a master architect and the housing vendor, and those interviews are going well. Garfield Park, Grants of 40 continue to be under construction. I know the Friends of the Library have been doing a lot of activities to raise funds for those 2 branches, as well as Aptos. And then I have to give a shout out to Scotts Valley, Tina. They've been working hard to schedule a whole variety of activities, everything from seismic upgrades to a generator program with PG&E in the event of a fire emergency this year. I know they just resealed the parking lot. We do expect a slightly earlier closure in August of this year, so that we can do some of the major project components of the Scotts Valley plan. And we're looking to open Boulder Creek by the first week of September. So many, many things going on.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from board members or additional updates from board members around projects?
I just want to take a moment to thank all the library staff that's been working so hard to get Capitola branch open. We're so proud of it in Capitola. We think it's going to be a real gem, jewel in the library district's crown. We encourage everyone on this call to participate in the virtual grand opening. In hindsight, if we could have just pushed it back 1 week, maybe we could have done it in person, but obviously these things take time to plan. So June 12th, as Director Nimitz mentioned, we'll be doing that grand opening at 10 o'clock in the morning. So Saturday morning, if you want to grab a cup of coffee and join us, we'd love to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board member questions? Look like it, or comments? Okay. Are there any members of the public that'd like to comment on this item?
Chair Bernal, there are no public comments.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll move on to the next item, which is actually project updates and comments by board members. So another opportunity to speak on projects if you'd like to. Okay, it doesn't seem like it. All right. Okay, are there any members of the public that would like to comment on this item? Probably not, but I'll just check. Doesn't seem like it. Okay. All right, so with that, we'll move on to the consent calendar. We have item A, which is the meeting minutes from May 6th. Are there any questions or?
I'll move approval.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'll see if there's any public comments before we take action. Any members?
Chair Bernal, there are no public comments.
Okay, so with that, we'll move with a vote. I guess we'll do a roll call vote. If you can have a roll call vote, please.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Goldstein,
Aye.
Vice Chair Friend,
Aye.
Chair Bernal.
Yes. Okay, so that passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is general business, and on that is Library Facilities Financing Authority final budgets for fiscal year 2021 and 2022. And the recommendation is to adopt the final budgets for that fiscal year. Do we have a presentation or?
I will offer the amazing Edith Driscoll the opportunity for comments.
All right, well, thank you. Members of the board, as mentioned, this is the final budgets for the fiscal year 21-22. The documents before you cover the financing as well as any administration costs anticipated. I will draw to your attention under the analysis section of the first page, we are listing out the 4 different entities, and I want to note that we needed to make modifications to the percentages because the City of Capitola and the County of Santa Cruz have received their total authorized distribution amounts and therefore no longer participate in future distributions of the special tax. And any questions?
Any questions for board members? No, doesn't look like it. Okay, thank you, Edith. I'll next see if there's any members of the public that may have some comments on this item.
Chair Bernal, there are no public comments.
All right. So with that, we'll take I'll take a motion to adopt the budgets.
I will make a motion to adopt the Library Facilities Financing Authority final budgets for fiscal year 2021-2022.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Goldstein,
Aye.
Vice Chair Friend,
Aye.
Chair Bernal.
Yes. Okay, so that passes unanimously. And we can move on to our next item, which is item 9, scheduled of upcoming meetings. And that is August 5th, another virtual meeting at this point, 9 o'clock. And then after that, we have adjournment. So thank you, everyone. Okay, with that, we'll move on to our next agenda, which is the Santa Cruz City County Libraries Joint Powers Authority Board meeting, Thursday, June 3rd. May we have a roll call, please?
Director Palacios,
Here.
Director Goldstein,
Here.
Vice Chair Friend,
Here.
Chair Bernal.
Here. Thank you. Next is additional materials. Do we have additional materials?
We do not.
Thank you. Next is additions and deletions to the agenda. Do we have any additions, deletions?
We have none.
Okay. Next is oral communication, which is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to the board on matters that are the subject matter of this board, but there are items that are not on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public that like to speak to the board on oral communications?
Chair Brunel, there are no public comments.
Okay, thank you. Next is item 5, which is a report by the library director. So I'll turn it over to you, Susan. Thank you.
I'm sad to report that one of our long-term staff members, Caroline Caldwell, died after a lengthy illness, and the City of Santa Cruz was kind enough to put flags at half-mast in her honor, and I'm very grateful for that. I've got some great news that came in this weekend. The Santa Cruz Public Library, through the hard work of many of its staff, just received the award of a $100,000 grant for workforce development from the library. Why am I blanking? LSTA. Help me out, Eric. Library. I know you can do it.
I always know it by its acronym too. So
LSTA. Okay. It's federal government. But the library has played a major role in helping people find jobs in the past, and it will provide us some resources and extra staffing to do so in the near future when we know it'll be really necessary. The last thing I want to say, and I know the board members are aware of that, but I just wanted to publicly state that I have submitted my intent to retire by the end of this summer. I know there'll be an opportunity to talk about that later during the meeting, but I wanted to make sure that it was publicly on the record. And we will do a press release.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Susan. Let's see. Do you have any questions from board members regarding the library director report? Well, definitely acknowledge your contributions to the system, of course, which have been significant, and all the work that's been done. And so we'll schedule that and get that all organized and had discussions and announcements about the next steps. So thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Let's see, are there any members of the public that like to speak to us on item 5, report by library director?
Chair Brunel, there are no public comments.
Thank you. Next is an oral report by Friends of the Santa Cruz Public Libraries.
And we have the incredible Bruce Cotter with us.
Good afternoon. My name is Bruce Cotter. I am the Executive Director of the Friends of the Santa Cruz Public Libraries. I thank you for providing me this opportunity to report on the Friends activities. The Friends continue to support the move to appropriate staffing levels at the library in order to maximize public service levels. We thank you for passing Director Nemeth's staffing reopening plan last month. I can personally attest to the number of conversations that I have had in the last month with our supporters, who are all just so pleased to have the opportunity to physically enter libraries again and browse through the stacks. It really does feel as though we're beginning to return to normalcy. As Director Nemeth said, we're just a couple of weeks away from opening the Capitola branch library. I won't go over everything she shared about it, but I will add that the Friends are actively involved in the media day and in planning this event and in leading the tours, and look forward to seeing you all there. In addition, the Friends are continuing efforts to document our processes and procedures in order to improve our organizational transparency and efficiency. This is particularly important now as we are beginning a major new project, which we are calling Realizing the Promise, which the director referred to earlier. As you all know, Measure S, passed in 2016, provided funds for much needed capital improvements to our aging library buildings, but much work needs to be done, still remains to be done, and additional investments are required in order to realize the full promise of our Santa Cruz library system and make them the welcoming and transformative spaces that we all want for our community. The first phase of this campaign by the Friends aims to raise $1 million this year to help underwrite the completion of the Aptos, Garfield Park, and Branciforte branch renovations. The distribution is $470,000 towards Aptos, $210,000 for Garfield Park, and $320,000 for Branciforte. There are two very active communities who are aggressively working that plan. One for Aptos, which is headed by Tricia Wynn, and one for the two Santa Cruz branches, which is headed by Martha Dexter. We have a number of active volunteers helping us, and I would particularly like to mention Cynthia Matthews and Donna Myers in that regard, both of whom have done yeoman work. We are in the early phases of the campaign now, where we are beginning the process of cultivation and identifying lead and major donor prospects. Although we have not begun any of those meetings yet, in terms of the formal asks, I can report that we've already achieved about 20%, a little over 20% of our target. We have 100% participation from the members of our board of directors, and we will move to a full community-wide campaign in the late summer. Finally, let me say that while we completely understand Director Nemet's decision to take retirement at this time, we are very sorry to see her leave. Her strong, capable, and cheerful leadership has been key to the implementation of Measure S across the system and to the system's managing to continue to operate this year under the double impact of the pandemic and the wildfires. Although we will miss her greatly, we are confident that the capable leadership team that she has built, which is ably led by Assistant Director Eric Howard, is very well positioned to move the library ahead through the important projects that 2021 and beyond will bring to us. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Cotter. Appreciate that. Are there any questions from board members? Okay.
Chair Bernal,
yes.
just a quick note to say it's just astounding to see all the energy and all the work happening and how the community is coming together around this. And so I just, want to extend our great thanks to you and the entire Friends Board for all this tremendous work. It's so exciting. And thank you also for hearing the kind words about Susan. We're all, I think, adjusting to the news ourselves. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Director.
Yeah, I would echo those comments too. It's incredible what's been happening thus far. It's good to see the light at the end of the tunnel after what we've gone through. So that's really great. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, so with that, then we'll turn it to the members of the public to see if there are any comments on this item.
Chair Bernal, there are no public comments.
Okay, thank you again.
Thank you.
Next is a report by the Library Advisory Commission, an oral report. And it looks like Lindsay Bass is here again with us to report. Welcome, thank you.
It's the amazing Lindsay Bass.
That's right, Lindsay Bass, that's right.
Oh, your kudos are coming soon, Director Nemet. Good evening, board members. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update tonight. The Library Advisory Commission last met on Monday, May 17th. We met via Zoom teleconference. We had a couple of conversational topics as well as 2 motions that were made on our general business agenda. All of our motions were unanimous with 1 vacancy. I will echo the comments made by Bruce Cotter in terms of extending our appreciation to the JPA for supporting the restoration of base level funding for the library. We're seeing that enable this process of restoration of library hours and services, and it is just igniting so much energy amongst library users who have missed the library's physical presence and the ability to go into the branches so much. With summer reading kicking off now, it's so exciting to see these things taking place, and that's in large part thanks to your support. So I appreciate that very much. We talked also about the reopening next steps that the library was undertaking following some key criteria that they laid out for us. They helped walk us through that process would be completed in phases. So at this point, we're now beginning the modified open phase. And when we met in May, the library was just beginning their efforts to refill and train their employees. And that's a process that's going to continue to take, several months to complete. And so in combination with the criteria that they walked us through, as well as the retraining, full services will be back in place likely in September, they informed us. So we're very eager to see that full restoration of services, and the library team and leadership are to be commended for their work, Herculean effort to make that happen. The last two items are the items where we made motions. We reviewed and endorsed the plan for development of the library's next strategic plan. So Director Nemitz and Assistant Director Howard laid out a 7-stage plan for a plan that will take place over the next 8 months and culminate in the completion of a final plan estimated for February 2022, and that will then be put to a vote by the JPA. This should provide sufficient time to consider the new strategic plan for the FY 22-23 fiscal year. So we are very excited to be embarking on that process with library leadership. We have some great members of the commission that we're looking to leverage their strong skill sets in organizational development and leadership, as well as strategic planning. So I'm excited to get that underway. We also endorsed the proposed 21-22 Joint Powers Authority budget. So thank you for your continued support to restore that base level funding. And commissioners were very supportive of moving forward on that. So you have our strong alignment and support in that vein. Before I conclude, I just want to note a couple of changes to the commission that took place. So we are thrilled to have Jennifer Mount joining the commission to fill the vacancy left by the amazing Bruce Cotter, who you just heard from. Jennifer will be representing the 5th District. We also received Jim Landreth's resignation from the commission. So currently we have a vacancy in Scotts Valley that we'll be looking to fill. And finally, I can't say it any better than Bruce did, but we were recently informed of Director Nemitz's impending retirement, and I'm sure we'll have more to say about that at our next meeting. But I do want to express that we are all very saddened by the news. We have enjoyed working with Director Nemitz and her leadership. We're very, very thankful for her incredible service over the last 5 years. She's leaving very big shoes to fill, but we're very, very excited about the incredible leadership that she has put in place. So, and I think that is a real characteristic of a great leader, is when they build an incredible team around them. So, Susan, I'm still in shock. But thank you so much, and we'll look forward to working with you over the coming months to help in any way we can with that transition. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Bass. Are there any questions for Lindsay from members of the board?
Actually, I just have one thing, just to acknowledge the vacancy from Scotts Valley and to let Lindsay and the commission know that we are working, I'm working with the mayor right now in a process to identify a great new representative for the LAC. We know how important it is. And if you have feedback on like certain gaps you're trying to fill to make sure we have a rich set of perspectives, I'd be very happy to take that feedback. So if you can reach out, that'd be great.
Fantastic, will do. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Great. Thanks again for that report. I mean, it's great to have all the members of the public that are so interested in library issues and supporting the libraries and working with the staff and everyone to provide, great feedback and advice. That's amazing, amazing work. Thank you again. All right. So are there any members? I'll just see if there are any members of the public that like to comment on this item, the report by the Library Advisory Commission. Are there any members of the public?
Chair Bernal, there are no public comments.
Let's see. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item then, which is comments by board members. Do you have any comments by board members? I guess it can be about anything. All right, so it doesn't look like we have any. Okay, next is correspondence by the public. There's some in the packet, I believe. Or is there anything else that needs to be highlighted with respect to correspondence? I don't believe so. Okay, any questions for board members on this item? Doesn't look like it. Okay, So then we'll move on to the next item, which is the consent calendar. We have 4 items on the agenda under consent, A through D. Do we have, first of all, are there any members of the board that like to pull an item on the consent calendar? No. Okay, I'll now see if there's any members of the public that like to comment or pull an item from the consent calendar.
Chair Bernal, there are no members of the public who would like to comment nor pull an item from consent calendar.
Okay, thank you. So then I'll entertain a motion then to approve the consent calendar.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Goldstein,
Aye.
Vice Chair Friend,
Aye.
Chair Bernal.
Yes. Okay, so that passes unanimously. Thank you. Next on the agenda is item 11, which is general business. And there's 2 items under this. We'll start with item A, which is the fiscal year 2021 Santa Cruz Public Library budget recommendation. And I'll turn it over to Susan for a report.
We are hoping to adopt our final budget for fiscal year 2021. We are looking for a management analyst position, the elimination of overdue fees, 4 small position changes, the addition of 4 FTE LA2s to help us with the opening of Garfield Park, Boulder Creek, and La Selva Beach, and expanded hours. Our hope is that those will be filled by January 2022, so the costs assigned have been prorated. We would like permission for the library to be able to carry forward authority, or to have quick carry forward authority for our capital accounts, our capital maintenance accounts that would allow us to do multi-year projects. And we would like one-time funds of $50,000 to help achieve our work plan goals and hire some professional assistance, particularly around strategic planning, equity, capital maintenance planning, and analysis of our FID. So we're hoping that you will pass our FY22 budget. Our budget document is enclosed. Is there any questions?
Okay, are there any members of the board that have questions on the budget? And we had, looks like Director Goldstein had a question.
I have a couple questions. The first one, and I think I know the answer to this, but just confirming. So the 4 additional FTEs, the 6-month cost is $100,000, but for the full year, it would be $200,000 in the next year. Is that
That
math
is correct.
right?
That is correct.
Okay, thanks. And then this one is maybe a little bit trickier question, but on page 74 of the packet, which is the budget overview, I was trying to track the fund balance from year to year. And it
so,
could be.
Is it okay if I walk through them? And I'll just say that, go ahead.
Sure, yeah. It's going to be a little bit funny. If you could pop it up on the screen, that'd be easiest, because I'm afraid everyone else who doesn't have the budget in front of them may wonder what we're talking about. But yeah, if you could walk me through how we ended up with the 4.16, because when I tried to do the math, I came up about $700,000 short, and I suspect I'm just not thinking about it properly or missing something. I was wondering if you could help.
$700,000 short. Okay, so we were trying to show in a financial summary fund balance. And so the FY22 or 2020 column, which is the first column, fund balance, is the City of Santa Cruz year-end financial reports fund balance. And we get that 4 to 6 months after the year end. So that's the actual. The FY adopted budget, that was the fund balance we assumed at the time in which we adopted the budget. And the FY21 year-end estimate is the City of Santa Cruz's current estimate of what the fund balance is going to be. And I think in financial spreadsheets, the standard practice has been to add the fund balance to deficit or excess spending to reach these figures. And we haven't done this here. We've tried to footnote it, but so we can look at both our projections and at our estimates as far as we know.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so thank you for putting this up on the screen. To just explain what I saw was, I saw that the 2.955 million of fund balance last year.
Uh-huh.
And then our estimated year-end estimate this year was a surplus of 1.923.
Uh-huh.
And then it looks like we're transferring about 1.4 million into the reserves
Yes.
this year. But when I do that math, I end up with 3.45 million about in fund balance, not the 4.16. So that was just kind of what confounded me a little bit. I suspect, since this is a spreadsheet, that there's just something else happening in the spreadsheet that I'm not aware of, or
And it's the spreadsheet is not doing the calculation. What we took is the City of Santa Cruz's estimate of what they believe the fund balance is.
Okay. Okay. I think that was my only question then. So what you're telling me is the numbers are all good, they're all estimates, but there's not the reason why the math doesn't track is because this isn't actually a spreadsheet. It's just the numbers are coming from your folks in finance in Santa Cruz.
Correct.
Okay. And then I think those are my only questions. Thank you.
I guess my question, if I could, Chair Bernal, or ask Susan, how, in terms of the City of Santa Cruz finance timeframe, what I'm trying to figure out why it takes so long to get the actuals. Is it because that you're waiting for the audit? Is that what you're doing? But we close the books well before the audit, and usually the audit makes minor adjustments, if anything. So usually by the close of books, which should happen much earlier, and talking, by a couple of months after the end of the fiscal year, you would have the actuals. So what is the process that's delaying getting the actual numbers?
And I think in part we've had some major turnover in our finance office, but this has been delayed for. This goes back. Kira, Clerk Smith, if we could put Kira, I don't know the answer, Carlos. Kira, are you aware of why those numbers come?
Yes, sorry, this is Kira Hennepin, the analyst for the library, and we do work closely with the City of Santa Cruz Finance Department. And some of it is the receipts they get from the county as far as sales tax and maintenance of effort. They have to account for that in their accounting system. So that delays their timing a little. And the other is the audit. They just have a lot of staff working on the audit, and it takes a while to get our financial documents.
Yeah. The other thing, unfortunately, we had asked Kim Kraus, our finance director, to be here as well, but I just got texted that her husband had to go to the ER, so she's not able to make it right now. So sorry about that. But we can certainly follow up with finance to get some additional information and see if there's anything we can do to really make that more timely. That would certainly be helpful.
I do want to say that the estimate for our balances for 2021 are as of March. So we are likely to get an update relatively soon, but it will not be the final.
Okay.
Okay. Director Friend, you had a question?
I do. Yeah, I have a fairly simple question. Thank you, Susan. So just wanted to confirm that at our last meeting, when we were talking about some very weighty topics we'll be taking up in the next year to sort out in order to prepare for a services and staffing strategy for the coming or the next fiscal year, as well as the budget, is having a series of committees. And we talked about needing some additional support in order to have that. So we had put in our motion to include an appropriation for $30,000 for that support. So I want to confirm that's in here, and if that's different from the $50,000 professional assistance that appears in the report, or if that's augmenting.
I would like to actually augment it, just because I think we have such weighty issues, and we have limitations on staff. It may take time for us to be able to hire the analysts, and in the meantime, we may need to fill that. And I really do believe that there's a series of questions that we are going to have to financially answer this year in order to make decisions you need to make. And my hope was that you would augment that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll just say I do support that, because I think that the board was concerned, how are we going to get all this work done? Because we wanted to materially be in a better place with our information and our decisions for next year's budget, rather than having the work half done again, which I know is very difficult for you to plan your services. So, okay, great. That was my question.
Okay, thank you. Looks like Director Golston, you have a question?
I guess just to build off Director Friend's question. So the professional assistance is 50,000, but I was viewing it as it's broader, right? It's multiple contracts. It's somebody who's doing some strategic plan work. It's someone who's helping us. Okay, thank you.
And we'd be happy to report back on how that money's being spent. I do want to acknowledge that we have done a year-long preparation for some major equity work that I expect to really begin to hit the ground. I know that many of you are in the same boat and beginning to do that work, but we expect that there are going to be some immediate expenses related to some of that work that will be substantial. And we can bring more to you in the future about that issue.
Okay. Do we have any additional board member questions?
All right, I've got one more.
Okay, go ahead. That's all right. Go ahead, Jim.
Do you think we could pull up page 85, Moderator Jones?
Jamie, you're muted.
Oh, I was going to say it's up, Jamie. Yeah.
Was I muted the whole time?
Yes, I think once it went up, we could. You mean start your question over again?
I was holding the space bar. I guess it didn't work. Okay, so under the proposed 21-22, it says no change under all of the items. And I think what this is supposed to be saying is the red items go to 0. And the black items are not changing. And so I guess is that correct?
Kira, could you respond to this? And I think if we're struggling with the chart, we probably should change it no matter what, because we've just had lack of clarity on this. But Kira?
Yes.
So Jamie was correct in his interpretation.
So yes, Jamie is correct. The items that are in red are being proposed as a suspension, no longer charging those fees. So yes, Jamie, we can change all those to 0 instead of no change.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that clarification. Any additional questions? Okay, I'll next turn it over to the public to see if there's any public comments regarding the proposed budget for fiscal year 2022.
Chair Brunel, there are no public comments.
Okay, thank you. Bring it back to the board for an additional deliberation and action.
So I'd like to make some comments on, first of all, on Susan's notification that she's going to be retiring. I just want to tell you how grateful we are for your service for the last 5 years. I still remember when we hired you, and I remember the interview we did. I still remember that, and you've done a great job just putting together a very complicated system of closing and opening and modifying libraries in order to accommodate the construction schedules, as well as working with all of our stakeholders, community members, and our staff. And I know that's not an easy task to manage all of that change and still have people feeling good about the process. And so I want to thank you for your leadership, and I want to thank you for the years that you served this community. And you will you've left a mark. That's always really a neat thing for us public servants when we leave and we can look back and actually go touch a building, and you'll be able to touch, I think 10 of them, right? Or so or more. So thank you so much for that. I guess leading off that, I support the budget and I understand all the requests I'm supportive of. I guess the one issue for me, I understand that the actual library assistant positions won't be hired until January. So I understand that, but the management analyst, which in general I support, but I just worry that during the transition that the new interim director or permanent director that we hire may have different ideas about how to organize the management structure. I know it's always a difficult time when we transition from running an organization, and there's always different thoughts. So I support approving the request as is, but I would ask that we add additional direction to await on filling the management analyst until we've appointed an interim director and had a conversation with that interim director about whether this is the way that the new interim director would like to proceed, or people have different ideas, and I know that. So other than that, I do support the budget, and I would I don't know if other people have comments, and before I'll make a motion to that effect.
Okay, why don't we do that? And okay, we'll just go around and make comments. You want to go next?
I'll step in.
Okay,
so I understand this is Susan's last meeting. I thought we had one more. And so, oh my goodness. Okay, it is all coming in fast. So it's interesting what Carlos said about remembering the interview, because that's what I flashed on too. I remember meeting you on the screen and how that interview felt like a conversation. You were so comfortable talking about it. Your love and your heart for library services was just so present in the conversation, and you were very grounded and serious about it too. And I felt that that's how you've led here in Santa Cruz County. You have been very serious and very thoughtful, and you have very strong ideas about what we should do as we'd want to see. And yet you're so personable and so great to converse with that you almost didn't realize that you're conducting very serious business sometimes, because it was, a great interaction. So thank you for that. Thank you, as Carlos said as well, for leading in really, this is, talk about a career culminating, year we've had here. It's just been incredible. And here we are, libraries opening, staff being restored. We're going to come out of this stronger, I think. And we're just so grateful. So we're going to miss you so much. Grateful that you'll be around and we'll be able to see you. And just thank you so much, Susan, for your service. It's been really wonderful working alongside you.
I just want to take a minute also to thank you, Susan. I do remember the interview process and your enthusiasm, and which has continued for the last 5 years for libraries, is truly infectious. I also really appreciate how you've taken the time to bring me along some ideas that maybe I was initially skeptical about. I think the fines for the youth and what we're doing now with the fines for everybody was something that I think and the rest of the board knows I was initially skeptical about. And I think, you did a great job of really helping educate me about sort of the state of library science and the best practices. It's just really been appreciated. And, you really have left a mark on our community. And I know that when Capitola branch opens, there's a little bit of you inside it as well. So it's been wonderful working with you, and I really want to congratulate you. And then I will pivot back to the budget and just say, I think Carlos's suggestions were right on. I'm fully prepared to support the budget. And I think working with the interim director a little bit on kind of the structure of this management analyst question is totally appropriate. So thank you guys all for your great work.
Okay, thank you. I'll make some comments and then we'll entertain a motion. And yeah, I echo the comments that have been made. And maybe just note as far as your contributions too, that I certainly really appreciate is, your push to having us really look at the system holistically and as an entire system has been really greatly appreciated. I know that's always hard given the diversity of communities that we have and in this small county, but you've always really pushed us to think about the system that way and to take away those imaginary lines that we have, jurisdictional lines. And also you're really focused on strategic planning and looking ahead and trying to keep this in the forefront of library science and library services. That's been really tremendous and will greatly benefit the library over the long term. And so, yeah, you'll be missed quite a bit. And again, I also want to thank you for your dedication and improvements to the system that I think, as others mentioned, you're going to be able to feel and touch them into the future. We all will. And so thank you very much. So with that, then we'll entertain a motion, and then I'll turn it back to Susan if she wants to comment or make any comments as well.
Okay, I'll make a motion. I had moved that we approve the FY 2022 budget with two additional directions. One is that staff report back at our next meeting with the reconciliation of the fund balance, just so we're all clear and on the same page on that. And then second, that we approve all the new positions and requests that are made. However, we ask that or direct that the management analyst not be filled until we've had a conversation and a new interim director has been appointed.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All right, I'll take a roll call vote unless there's some additional comments the board members want to make. Okay, does it look like it? Okay, we have a roll call vote, please.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Goldstein,
Aye.
Vice Chair Friend,
Aye.
Chair Bernal.
Yes. So that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Congratulations on having a new budget, Susan. And I'll turn it over to you to see if you would like to make any comments before we move on to the next item.
I'm trying not to cry, but it's hard. This isn't the way I had hoped to leave. For people who don't know, I have some health issues that I just want to tend to. I was hoping I could get 1 or 2 more years out of it, but I think I really need to spend the time. It was an honor to be the director of the Santa Cruz Public Libraries. It's an amazing system that's going to do great things. And we have amazing staff and volunteers and community members. And I'm so grateful that for a short time I got to lead this amazing place. I may be leaving big shoes, but I have lots of people I work with who have big feet. And I'm really excited and looking forward to the things that I know that they're going to accomplish. I want to say, I think we're well on our way on these facilities to getting them done successfully. And it will be a new set of skills that are needed to make the branches live up to their facilities. And I think we are really setting the foundation of having amazing people filling those shoes. I'm being repetitive, so I'll quit. Thank you. I've learned things from all of you. It's been a pleasure and a joy.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, we still have at least one more item, and let's move on to that, which is plan for the development of the library strategic plan. So
And I've had amazing and spectacular. So let's see, the marvelous Eric Howard, who's leading our strategic plan.
Thank you, Susan. Good evening, board members. As Lindsay noted, the LAC endorsed a plan at their last meeting for us to go forward with the strategic plan. We had intended to bring it to the LAC earlier, but the agenda at the time was pretty crowded. So we pushed it forward. And the only reason why I'm raising that is because we haven't kicked it off. If you're looking at the timeline, this in May, but we will be kicking it off next week with the announcement of the team for the strategic plan. And I also wanted to mention, as you are all aware, Susan made the very wise recommendation last year for us to pause going forward with the strategic plan. Then it was slated for us to kick it off last year, and because of the pandemic and so much uncertainty in the world and the reduction in staff, it just didn't make sense at that time when we were trying to take measure of what the future was, and it seemed so uncertain to do it then. And as Bruce said, things really are beginning to feel like they're going back to normal. And so this is a really important time for us to start thinking strategically about where we are headed. It probably doesn't come as a surprise to many of you that during the closure or suspension of so many services, we saw a pretty significant reduction in our active users at the library. We still remain robust, but there was a reduction. People's habits have changed. And so part of the thinking in the strategic plan is going to be about how do we capture those patrons again, and how do we grow the number that we have. And I just want to also mention that, well, I'll just read one or two lines from the staff report that we provided to kind of outline where we're headed with this. The strategic planning is a tool that, when used effectively, helps bring into alignment an organization's mission, vision, values, goals, and objectives, resource allocation, and activities. And it provides a useful framework for monitoring and reacting to dynamic environments. And I don't think there's been a more dynamic environment in my career as there has been in this past year. So we have a lot to learn and figure out for the next 3 years, but we have a lot to build on. Susan also had kicked off a program inside the library to evaluate equity, both within the organization and then also looking at our services. And so for more than a year now, we've had a team reviewing what other library systems and organizations have done to provide more equitable services and to have a larger impact on the community. So we will be building on that. We've recruited from that equity team to make up a large number within our strategic planning committee. And the other piece that I just want to mention is two things, actually. One, Susan also helped to recruit staff to take classes and build their skills through a process that we call Hayward, which is something that more and more libraries are taking advantage of. And this is a way for staff to really learn what the community needs are. You know, in years ago, if you were building a strategic plan and you went out to the public to ask them, what do you want your library to do for you? That already has a bias because people already have an idea, a concept of what a library can do. Whereas we are trying to turn that around so that we can go out into the community and find out what the community needs, and then look at what librarianship is now bringing to the fore and what our resources can provide so that we can better respond to those needs. And so that'll be a big component of this work. And then what I hope to do is maintain the same team that we are building to develop the strategic plan, and have them meet on a quarterly basis for the next 3 years to review the metrics that we develop out of the strategic plan to make sure that it's working, and then to figure out what we need to do to change if it's not. So there are more details in the report. It goes over the timeline, and then when we'll be coming back to you, as well as to the LAC to report out, and then to develop the goals. And as Lindsay said, the goal here too is to complete this in February of 2022, so that we'll have enough time to take this plan and use it to make our budgetary priorities for the next fiscal year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from board members regarding the plan for strategic plan development?
I have one question. In general, recruitments for director level positions often take 4 to 5 months. Have you thought at all, Eric, about the timing of when a new director would start to make sure that they're able to strategically provide input into this process, that it isn't like completely baked by the time they get there? Have you given that any thought?
Yes, and there's a couple schools of thought on this. One is some systems will lean on their assistant director to develop it out, much as what Susan has been doing before she made this decision. And the other piece of this is we are going to be in a process of gathering data. And then it won't be until the beginning really of the new year, in December, that we'll be reviewing what should the goals be, what will the data tell us, and then how do we get meaning out of that. So that's more than 6 months out, and there'll be ample opportunity for a new director to process that and make sense of what does this data tell us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions for Eric? Doesn't look like it. Okay, I'll next turn it to the, see if there's any members of the public that like to comment on this item.
Chair Bernal, there are no public comments.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board then for a motion, which is that the staff recommendation is to review and endorse the plan for the development of the library strategic plan.
Go ahead and make the motion to endorse the strategic plan. And I want to thank Susan and Eric for your efforts in this area. It's such an important piece of what we do, this kind of effort, strategic planning, getting people into a shared mission and vision and a shared management culture and service culture for our community, and then the equity as well work. So in any event, I thank you very much, and I make the motion. I don't know, Jamie, are you pointing out something? Oh, I thought you were pointing at with your head. That would be my motion. Thank you, Eric and Susan.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that. I was just picking up the agenda because I was looking at what the staff recommendation was to make the motion myself. So I'll second it.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call vote, please?
I just have a quick comment,
Oh,
Chair Bernal. I also want to appreciate this work. And I really like how even deep in the strategic planning, it's thinking about or the expectation that library services must evolve and will evolve. And I think that's so wonderful, because that seems like that's baked very, very deeply into the culture, that we are service, community forward. What do they need? We do traditional things, but how we do them, is really up for the community to lead the way. So I just think that's so great and a very thoughtful plan. So thank you. And I can't wait to see, and I can't wait to talk about it when we all meet and to see where it goes. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Goldstein,
Aye.
Vice Chair Friend,
Hi.
Chair Bernal.
Yes. So that passes unanimously. Thank you to all of you. So that concludes our regular agenda. And next is then item 12, which is the schedule of upcoming meetings, which is again, August 5th at 9 a.m.
And I think we were going to go to a closed meeting, weren't we?
Yes, and then,
Okay.
yes, and after that, we have adjournment to a closed session. And so we'll go ahead and do that then. Thank you very
And
much.
one of the questions I have, Martine, is will you come back from the closed session and make an announcement?
I
or
know
not?
I know we plan to do a public release on
Okay.
on your announcement.
Okay.
And what
You conclude.
Yes, so we'll do a public release.
Okay. And then should Eric and I leave or stay?
Why don't you initially stay and then we'll go from there. Once.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, I've never retired before.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Yeah. So why don't you and Eric stay to begin with, and then we'll begin the closed session.